the teen brain may be overdeveloped, but when they're with their friends, we start to see that they don't use all of their brain at all. And they can be a little more irresponsible and incompetent when they're with their friends. What's curious about this is researchers have done this really, I think, fascinating series of studies across the years that have highlighted that when teens are not with their friends, they tend to make decisions that are about the same as what adults will make. But when they're with their friends, things kind of go a little bit haywire. So we need to talk about this. Kerry's jumped into the chat and said, this is taught so much in schools. My son literally did an assignment on learning styles in his Year 11 career and enterprise assessment. I know. And Kerry, you can Google this and find credible, some of the best psychology researchers in the world who have written articles about why we've got to stop teaching this VAK learning style, or why we've got to stop believing that we're left-brained or right-brained, and why we've got to stop thinking that doing a Myers-Briggs personality assessment is going to tell us anything meaningful about ourselves. There are all these myths that, I don't know, big corporations that are making a whole lot of money have perpetuated so that we will buy their products because everybody thinks that this stuff is the way that it is, and it's not. Now, let's have a talk about this issue of adolescence and what's actually happening in their brain. It's kind of important. First thing is, when toddlers are running around and they think they're the center of the universe? Well, because of the way the adolescent brain is developing, teenagers think they're the center of the universe as well. They kind of feel like everybody's watching them. Everybody's aware of them. Everybody's participating in their life and looking at them, believing that everyone's thinking about them. Now, you know this, right? You know that you're so busy thinking about yourself and you're thinking about all the stuff that you've got to deal with that you completely forget a whole lot of other people in your life that are really important, and you don't get a chance to text them, or you forget to communicate with them, and your very best friends and sometimes even your partner will miss out on special time with you because you're so in your own head. But adolescents really truly believe, because they're so much in their own head, they truly believe that they're the center of the universe and that they're also the center of everyone else's universe around them. It's remarkable the way they do that. So egocentric, just like toddlers. As a result, they get really caught up in stuff. They get really emotional about things, and they really do think that when something happens to them that's bad, that it is the end of the world, because everybody's seen it, everybody's talking about it, and everybody's going to hang on to this and hold it against them forever. The truth of it, of course, is that this isn't likely to happen, but that's how they feel about things. Moving on from that, though, when we focus on what is going on here for our adolescents, when they're with their friends, research shows that they've got a significantly higher propensity for risk-taking behavior. When they're on their own, not so much. But when they're with their friends, big time. I'll give you a really embarrassing example of this. I'll put the screen away for a second and share this with you. When I was a teenager, we used to do this thing called the Milk Challenge. I can't believe I'm sharing this with you. It's too late. I've started the story. So the Milk Challenge goes like this. I'm 15 years old. I've just had dinner one night. A couple of my friends come over. One of them has his red peas. In fact, we only had red peas back then. So one of them has his peas, and he and one of my other buddies, we're all hanging out at my place. I've just eaten a big bowl of spaghetti bolognese after a 2-hour swimming session. And one of the guys says, "Hey, have you ever done the Milk Challenge?" To which I responded, "No, I haven't, but I'm always up for a challenge." Why? Because I'm a teenage boy and challenges are awesome. See, challenges have been around before TikTok and Facebook and Instagram. We were doing challenges back when there was no such thing as social media. In fact, there was no such thing as, barely any such thing as computers. So it's like 1989. And the milk challenge is you've got to drink 2 liters of milk in 5 minutes. And I didn't think that was going to be hard at all. I opened up the fridge. Mum had just been shopping. There was 2 liters of strawberry milk in the refrigerator door. I said, fantastic, it's my favorite flavor. I pulled it out. The guy started the stopwatch, and within about 2.5, 3 minutes, I'd sculled the whole 2 liters of milk. At which point they said, "Oh yeah, and you've got to go for a run as well." So we went for a run down the street and back, and I was fine. A few years later, I'm probably, 19 or 20, hanging out with about 6 or 7 friends, and the guys have gone, "Oh, we should do the milk challenge. It's a nice Saturday morning. Let's do the milk challenge." I said, "I did it when I was 15. It's pretty lame." And they said, "You did it? Did you complete it?" And I said, "Yeah, of course. 2 liters of milk, 5 minutes, not hard at all." And they looked at me and said, 2 liters in 5 minutes, that's pretty good going, but that's not actually what the milk challenge is. I said, "Well, that's the milk challenge I did." They said, No. The milk challenge, the real milk challenge, is you've got to drink 4 liters of milk in an hour. and you've got to be able to hold it down for 5 minutes once you've finished the the milk. And I said, well, if I can do 2 liters in 5 minutes, I'm pretty sure I can do 4 liters in an hour. So all of us, the 7, 8 of us, went down to the local supermarket. We each bought 4 liters of milk, which must have looked really bizarre. And then we've sat in a car park and started to drink. One of the guys actually bought chocolate milk, 4 liters of chocolate milk. One of the guys bought 4 liters of eggnog. Can you imagine trying to drink 4 liters of eggnog in an hour? Dumb. By about the 30-minute mark, some of the guys were already being sick from the milk. It was about a 36-degree day. It was a hot day. And what happens is when you drink that much milk, I'm so sorry, this is really disgusting. But this is teenage boys, right? This is teenagers generally. They've got this propensity to take risks when they're with their friends. Milk, when you consume that much of it, I think the first couple of guys got to like 2.5, maybe even 3 liters, but they started to bring it back up. And when you've got that much milk leaving your digestive tract through your mouth, excuse me for grossing you out completely, but you know when you're normally sick and you'll be sick, you'll vomit, and it takes a couple of seconds for everything to expel itself from your mouth, and then you breathe and you go, oh, I feel awful, but I feel better now that I've done that. When you've got 2 or 3 liters of milk that's making its way out, it doesn't come out in 2 or 3 seconds. You open up your mouth and it just kind of keeps on coming for like 10 seconds. And you kind of wonder if you're ever going to breathe again, because it's like this huge white waterfall that keeps on going and going and going. I'm so sorry. This is really gross, I know. But I watched all of the guys doing that. I was at about 3.5 liters at 30 minutes. I had 30 minutes left to do half a liter, but I was in so much pain. I was so sick. I was just thinking, I don't think I can do this. And so I sat for about 15 minutes and didn't even touch that last half a liter of milk. And then I sat for another 5 minutes until there was only 10 minutes to go. Then I held it to my lips and I just took the tiniest sip. By then, everyone else had been sick except me. And I was the closest to finishing. I was like, I can do this. I can do this. I got to 5 minutes to go and realized that no matter how hard I tried, I wasn't going to get through that last 450 mil. I'd had like one tiny sip in the last 5 minutes. And so the guys got the cameras out. And of course, because this was like 1993 or something like that, 1994, there was no such thing as a phone camera. We didn't have phones. So they got the cameras out and they got these incredible images of me as I'm expelling 3.5. I took one last really big swig and got about 100 milliliters extra in, and then it all came gushing out, and it just kept on going and going. I got some amazing photos of this. And while all of this was going on, we didn't think for a second that it was stupid. We just thought that it was tremendous fun. Like the times where I've seen the surf be absolutely enormous, and I've only gone out because all of my mates were going out. And when we've all gotten back to the beach, they've all said, that was the scariest thing I've ever done. That was the biggest surf I've ever been in. That was terrifying. And I'm like, well, what did we go out for? And they're like, well, you were going out. I was like, well, I was going out because you were going out. You don't see a teenager on their own walk into the kitchen, open the fridge, and see 4 liters of milk there and go, wow, 4 liters of milk. I reckon I could drink that in an hour. I should try. I'm going to go and sit on the balcony and do that. Like, that's not what teenagers do until they're with their friends. And then something happens up here. It's socially oriented, but it's also brain oriented. Something happens and they start to take risks, but only in a social context. Yolandi has said, does that propensity extend to being with their friend in a digital format like FaceTiming? So Yolandi, I haven't seen any research to support or argue against the online context, but I would say this: when we consider issues around sending nudes, when we consider other risk-taking behaviors in terms, maybe doing challenges and that kind of thing, we're certainly seeing the digital platforms being an extension of risk-taking behavior. I'm not sure that it's quite as salient because there is a little bit of a gap between you and the person who's challenging you, between you and the person who's demonstrating what needs to be done. So there may be a little bit of additional distance there, which could reduce the likelihood of the teenager taking the risk. But we certainly have plenty of anecdotal evidence that teenagers are still taking risks with that online that digital platform. Rob has identified that he now has a new challenge with his friends. Rob's going to go and buy 4 litres. Don't do it, Rob. I promise. I promise you'll regret it. The research also shows that adolescents have reduced risk perception and reasoning. What this means is that when they're with their friends, they just don't notice that things are as risky as they actually are. They're less likely to pause, and they're less likely to think things through. Katrina's question is it feeling safe or risk of embarrassment to not be included? And so this is one of the things that we'll talk about a bit more as we go through, Katrina. But what we're really dealing with here is because they think they're the center of the universe, because they think everyone is watching them, and because adolescents, more than adults and more than children, are so socially oriented and so caught up in being a part of the group, there is absolutely a level of, I need to do this or my status is in doubt. My in-group belonging may be questioned. And so there's a really, really strong desire to be included. But there are a couple of other things as well that this relates to that we'll talk about as we move through our webinar this evening, and I'm looking forward to sharing those with you. Kerry says, thinking back to jumping off a bridge, this relates deeply. And I love that it's Kerry saying that. It's not just boys that do these dumb things. Girls, when they're with friends, are more likely to take risks. They have reduced risk perception and reduced reasoning. The research also tells us that they are, as Katrina asked, are acutely sensitive to social exclusion. So I won't talk any further about that now. We'll do that later. But the other thing that I think is really hard to get your head around as an adult is that adolescents show a lack of consideration for other people's perspectives and in their decision making. So they're just less worried about what other people think. They'll be on a train and yahooing and yipping and offending and upsetting people who are around them, and they don't really care. It's like, well, that's your problem. Get off the train. Go to a different carriage. We're here. We're having fun. This is our world. And there's a sort of a lack of perspective that's associated with all of this. And we'll talk more again about why that's occurring as we go throughout the webinar.